on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom for Wednesday, the 3rd of September 2025, and this is program number 1443 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Of course, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com, and we are also streaming live on our Facebook feed. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Our number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And if you are overseas, you may want to reach us on WhatsApp. That number is 724-0008. Again, our WhatsApp number, you can message in or call in on that number. It is 724-0008. I'm going to send out some birthday greetings for today. First to Mr. Antley Martial. Happy birthday to you, sir. And we're hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. Also to Miss Janelle Joyer. Happy birthday to you. And we hope you're having a wonderful birthday. And also to Miss Evita Francis. Happy birthday to you as well. Hope you're having a splendid and spectacular birthday celebration. A look back in time on this day, and we go as far back to the year 301, where San Marino, one of the smallest nations in the world and the world's oldest republic still in existence, was founded. That was believed to have been done by a saint called Marinus. In the year 1650, Oliver Cromwell's English New Model Army defeated a Scottish force in a surprise attack at the Battle of Dunbar. In 1783, on this day, the Treaty of Paris was signed in Paris, ending the American Revolutionary War between Great Britain and the United States. 1791, the new French Constitution was declared, and of course, France a constitutional monarchy, declaring France a constitutional monarchy, and that was passed by the National Assembly, and all happening during the French Revolution. 1900, on this day in history, with a proclamation by General Lord Roberts, Britain annexed the Boer Republic of South Africa. 1939, on this day, during World War II, Britain declared war on Germany after the invasion of Poland. France followed 6 hours later, quickly joined by Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Canada, declaring war. And in 1944, on this day, a lot of history, in fact, on this day, September the 3rd, Holocaust diarist Anne Frank was sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp. 1967, on this day, Sweden began driving on the right-hand side of the road. They were on the left before, and it was known as Dagenham. And in the year 1988, on this day, an estimated 50,000 Kurdish civilians and soldiers were killed by Iraq. By that date, many of them dying from the use of chemical weapons, and that was during the aftermath of the Iran-Iraq war. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And as we mentioned briefly yesterday, a lot of elections going on in our part of the world. Of course, we saw a transition over in Trinidad and Tobago, where the United National Congress, led by Kamla Persad-Bissessar, was able to defeat Mr. Stuart Young's People's National Movement. Of course, that led to a significant change in the electoral map of Trinidad and Tobago. And, well, a couple of days ago, on the 1st of September, we saw Guyana going to the polls. And although I think most people did expect the outcome of a return of Mr. Irfan Ali's PPP Civic, and in fact, according to what appears at this point in time, that based on the polls released by the Guyana Electoral Commission, that the PPP Civic is going to be returned to power, and they, in fact, were able to gain the majority of the regions in question. All the coastline regions being taken, major populated areas like Demerara and New Amsterdam, all of them being taken by the PPP. And the new party in question coming into the mix, WIN, We Invest in Nationhood, they were able to pick up some of the central regions around Linden, and I think about 2 regions in their instance being picked up, but pretty much a very comfortable win for Mr. Irfan Ali and his party, and of course he is also going to be going on to become the president of Guyana for a second term. Of course, the elections in Guyana are pretty important at this point, given the state of growth in that economy. It's one of the world's fastest, if not the world's fastest, growing economy right now, and that, of course, is thanks to major expansion of the oil sector, oil and gas sector. That is leading to a substantial windfall in revenue for the Guyana government, allowing them to make really major investments into infrastructure and the like. And of course, many of these investments are, one can say, already required for quite some time. They are behind the curve in investment in a number of areas, and even right now they're trying to play catch up. The electric sector, for example, electricity in Guyana, facing tremendous challenges because of the pressure of the growth in demand for energy there. A lot of temporary measures being taken to be able to deal with the increased loads coming out of the country at this point in time. And of course, they are looking at long-term investment in that regard as well, including looking at hydro. Of course, Guyana being blessed with a substantial amount of of physical resources, and one of them is the many rivers and the hydro potential that exists in Guyana, and they definitely want to be making good use of that, even though they are awash with the black gold of oil. And of course, major investments also being made in Guyana right now in the infrastructure of the country. The road infrastructure in particular is seeing tremendous overhaul. Major highways being constructed, ring roads for Georgetown and linking other parts of the country, roads into the hinterland, into Latham, connecting into neighboring Brazil, Roraima State. Significant construction of a major crossing of the Demerara River, which would then allow for access to the west bank of the Demerara, Georgetown being on the east side, and major construction being undertaken through a Chinese company there. And it does appear that the population over in Guyana is satisfied with the representation of the PPP Civic, led by Dr. Irfan Ali, and he is in fact going to get another term. Over 372,000 people voted on Monday, and they in fact secured over 200,000 of those votes, and they will be able to make up the majority of the 65-seat legislature once the government is formed. Of course, they have a mixed system. As I said, proportional representation is part of the mix, and they use a number of electoral districts. There are a total of 10 electoral districts, I believe. And as I said, the incoming new party, We Invest in Nationhood, and that was being funded by billionaire Azruddin Mohammed. And he has a bit of a colorful history, being sanctioned for bribery and corruption by the United States of America. His party, in fact, pulled, as I said, 2 of those 10 electoral districts. And if you were looking for more politics, you didn't have to look very far, because right now Jamaica is voting. And over in Jamaica, of course, you have Mr. Andrew Holness, his JLP, Jamaica Labour Party, looking for another term to get back into the parliament, and against Mr. Mark Golding and the PNP. Some polls have been suggesting that the PNP seems to have an edge there, and may very well see a return to the PNP. Of course, that party being the party of Mr. P.J. Patterson, Portia Simpson, Miller. We've seen a number of leaders being critical in the development of Jamaica recently, but the JLP was able to hold steady the fort for 2 terms thus far, and it will be very interesting to see how that pans out. They are, I think the local poll suggesting a 3.1% lead by the People's National Party. And I think there was another poll as well recently that also gave them the edge and suggested that they were going to be able to win. Very, very close race nonetheless. And part of the challenge, of course, of the JLP has been the issue of corruption being brought forward, allegations of corruption. And of course, that tends to be a very difficult thing to overcome, especially if there is a perception of that existing. If we were to, of course, capture the Guardian and their take on it, it reads as follows: Jamaicans head to the polls for election as ruling party faces corruption concerns. Jamaicans head to the polls on Wednesday for a closely fought general election, which has been overshadowed by an investigation into potential corruption in the ruling Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, which is seeking a 3rd term in office. The latest local poll put the opposition People's National Party, PNP, 3.1% lead over the JLP. But political analyst Damian Gordon cautioned that the lead was barely larger than the margin of error. Quote, "It's going to be a very close election," he said. While the JLP is leaning on their record of reducing crime and debt and growing the economy, the PNP has pitched itself as a party that will restore trust in leadership to rid the country of corruption and focus on critical public services such as infrastructure, water supply, and hospital facilities. The government has won praise in areas such as education and the economy, but it also has come under criticism for failing to improve infrastructure and access to running water in some parts of the country. In the closing weeks of the campaign, however, the opposition put the spotlight on concerns over alleged corruption involving the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness. Last year, the country's anti-corruption body, the Integrity Commission, issued a report raising concerns about Holness's income and asset declarations and recommended further investigation by the Financial Investigations Division, a specialized unit within the Ministry of Finance. The Prime Minister has denied any wrongdoing, gaining permission from the Supreme Court to challenge the report, which he branded unlawful and unfair. Quote, "It's a distraction for the government because the government has built its election campaign on the idea that it has delivered for Jamaicans in an unprecedented way," Gordon said. The World Bank has praised Jamaica for making significant strides in reducing public debt from more than 140% of GDP in 2013 to 73.4% in the financial year 2023-2024, and its economy is expected to grow by 1.7% this year. There has also been a drastic reduction in crime under the JLP, with official figures showing a 40% drop in murders in May compared to the same period last year. But during a recent debate between Holness and the opposition leader, Mark Golding, the Prime Minister was forced to focus on defending himself against allegations rather than just defending his achievements in office. He said, quote, "I have been investigated for a year with an expert forensic auditor. The findings of that report have suggested no corruption. There have been no charges. Every aspect of my report, every aspect of my personal life, and my personal financial details are in the public domain," end quote. Golding told The Guardian that the investigation into the Prime Minister was a valid concern for voters. He said, quote, "Other issues are often on the top of people's minds, especially the cost of living and crime and violence and so on. But I think the consciousness of the nation has been sufficiently stirred around this issue that it is going to be an issue that will impact the outcome of the election." He added, "We don't see how a country like Jamaica can do with a Prime Minister who has that cloud hanging over him," end quote. Golding, who previously held dual Jamaican and British citizenship, himself came under pressure during the campaign over concerns over his Jamaicanness. Quote, "I am born in Jamaica, I grew up here, I've only ever worked here, and the fact that my father was British meant that I did inherit citizenship by descent. So I was a dual national, which is allowed by our constitution as long as the other nationality is a Commonwealth nationality, which obviously Britain is a part of the Commonwealth," end quote. Golding said he decided to give up his British citizenship after polls indicated that voters didn't think a leader should have dual citizenship. He has allowed a journalist to examine his citizenship renunciation documents and displayed his birth certificate to voters. For many voters, however, the main concern is the economic progress Jamaica has seen in recent years. Quote, "I've seen growth," said business owner Shanna K. Henry, age 30. "JLP is for everybody, poor and rich," end quote. One PNP supporter, an accountant who did not want to give her name, said that people in her constituency were not being listened to and their needs were not being addressed. She said, "We need somebody who will represent us. They need to hear our voices, do what needs to be done," end quote. The outcome of the election will come down to how parties mobilize their bases, Gordon said. With the JLP's strong performance in key areas during their tenure and with Golding offering a credible alternative, it is too close to call. Quote, both political parties appear very confident, but I am of the view the election will be won on the day, he said. And that story coming from the Guardian's Natricia Duncan and Anthony Lugg over in Kingston, Jamaica. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll take in our weather report and then head back into taking some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
It's now time for our weather report, brought to you by Island Style.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home. Really? Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle-dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous tiles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And the forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between east and east-southeast near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. Weather partly cloudy to cloudy at times with brief scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. Forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Partly cloudy to occasionally cloudy skies with widely scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. The tropical weather outlook. The Atlantic high pressure system will maintain light to moderate easterly winds across the eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. A weak tropical wave and a low level trough will generate some cloudy periods with showers and the possibility of thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the next 24 hours. Another tropical wave located over the far eastern tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. Gradual development of this system is expected over the next few days. And that was your weather report brought to you by Island Style.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home. Really? Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number 1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous tiles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also message us at our WhatsApp number, that is 724-0008. And for our dish of the day, we touched on a little bit about Guyana and the ongoing Jamaica general elections on today, where about 2 million registered voters exist in an island of about 2.8 million in population. And the number of seats under contest, 63. And I think about 189 candidates in total going up, including some independents. Let's take in a call at this time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate? How are you doing, sir? Wonderful. I believe so, yes. Yes, I believe they do actually have oil reserves. I don't know the that entire offshore, that coastal shelf has quite a lot of oil, and of course that whole which comes down from the Orinoco basin. So yes, and in fact, according to what I'm seeing right here on Google, over 2.5 billion barrels of recoverable oil reserves exist in Suriname, including 12.5 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Well, it's always been a back and forth, yeah, but I think the section of Brazil that actually is closest to Guyana is the section that is north of the Amazon. So it's an interesting situation because they don't have, as far as I can recall, direct road links or very challenging transportation from Roraima State, right, with the rest of Brazil. So effectively, Guyana is almost a sort of a gateway for that section of Brazil in particular. And a lot of rangeland, a lot of land for pasture, for cattle. And so there is definitely a lot of potential for Guyana to connect with Brazil, but also just to connect with the rest of the Guyanas too, eh? Yeah, Suriname's population, what is it? Let's check it on. I thought it was about 600,000, and let me just check. It's 634,000, yes. 634,000. So, Well, all of those countries in the Guianas, that whole region has traditionally been underpopulated. And that has primarily been because of the challenge of developing it. Very, very forested. The coastline is challenging as well. Low-lying areas, a lot of flooding. Yes, yes, yes. Yellow fever. Yes. So, well, it actually was something that was going on even before that, even before the 50s, eh? It was because if you go back into, I think, even the turn of the from the 1800s into the 1900s or 1890s, you would say, from even as far back as then, there were attempts of trying to get people to migrate to the Guianas, and including French Guiana, Cayenne. Uh, that's right. That Yeah. Now Cayenne has an interesting history because for a very long time nobody wanted to go to Cayenne, and it was effectively like a penal colony, the Australia of France. Right. That's where. That's right. And so because again of the difficulty of agriculture in the area, it was a very and of course the challenges of, as you said, the diseases. A lot of people did not really want to go there, and St. Lucians were some of those persons from St. Lucia, Martinique, were the strong strong willed individuals. Yes. That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. And British Guyana. Yeah, and yes, exactly, and Guyana itself. In some parts, like Madia, I think is it, very high concentration of Saint Lucians who went over there, working in the mines, as you rightfully said, looking for gold, being involved in mineral extraction, bauxite as well. So yes, so there is that very strong connection between our island and islands. Barbados has also a very strong traditional connection with Guyana. Well, yes, and Jamaica. A lot of Jamaicans as well. Yes, yes. So certainly there has been this tradition of movement across the Caribbean that I mean, and unfortunately, I guess in those days when people. Okay, thanks very much for that, caller. Have a good one. And of course that movement is something in those days, especially when somebody went to Brazil, they were not, even going necessarily to a city where you may have easy communication or telephone or whatnot. Sometimes they were going into the hinterlands. They were effectively away from easy communication for a very long time. So a lot of people lost track of their family members who went to South America over time. And so you find that, and in some instances, some of these people did return. All right, so you would see that they would have gone away they might have spent 60 years and eventually came back. And of course, there's a lot of movement as well, especially between Cayenne and the French Antilles. So you found as well some of them who would have gone to Cayenne may not necessarily have relocated back to St. Lucia. They may have ended up going to Martinique and Guadeloupe as well. So this is a region where we've traditionally seen quite a lot of movement, and this is going back a long way. Even when we think about even during the colonial period, We had that conversation recently about slavery, and a lot of individuals who, if you look at the maybe the slave registers from the 1800s, a lot of them you don't really see too many people actually being born in Africa, right? Because most of the enslaved populations actually came from the neighboring islands, so they were actually transplanted into Saint Lucia, coming from Martinique, especially, but also after you had these major treaties like the Treaty of Paris in 1763, you saw waves coming in from St. Vincent and Grenada as well. Let's take another call. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Yes, certainly. Right. Yes. No, I've heard that certainly that they've played a major role in terms of the economic development and even in terms of the politics within that country. So certainly yes. And I think I believe the St. Lucia's Consul General, I'm not sure if that's the correct term, I think it is, to Martinique, she also has been visiting and trying to make greater connections with the population in French Guiana. Maybe at some point it might be necessary to actually have a consulate specific to French Guiana, and to see in fact whether that might be something worthwhile. But yes, certainly from what I understand as well, yes, a lot of connections in the upper echelons of the French Guiana, in the Cayenne society, are St. Lucians. So they have made a very good impact there. Thanks for that contribution. I think even in the case of Panama, not too long ago, I think we saw, was it the tourism minister of Panama actually having St. Lucian roots, I believe. I can't remember his name offhand, but yes, so we have had, again, Panama is another area where, this is going back to the early 1900s, late 1890s, 1900s, in the construction of the Panama Canal. You saw quite a number, thousands of people from the Caribbean being taken to work on, in the first instance, the project that was being undertaken by the French interests, and then, of course, which was taken over by the United States to construct that canal. And lots of them went across there. And it's been documented. There have been people who've been doing a lot of research into them. Those individuals who were paid in silver and not in gold because of their race and the discrimination that existed in those times. But certainly when you think about the Panama Canal, yes, it was funded by French and American interests, but a lot of the hard labor, a lot of the work, that the manual input and effort that went into it was actually done by Caribbean people. And they have also, many of them did in fact remain in Panama. And so sometimes, you get very anglicized names of people in Panama, and quite often that kind of maybe, or French sounding names as well. And you'll get the connection and you realize that, yes, these people are actually descendants of those individuals who went to Panama during that period of time. A lot of them settling on the Caribbean coast as well, in places like Limon, I believe, being another area. So yes, so a lot of connections there. And of course, Panama is really important from a trade perspective globally right now, and especially as we're seeing the challenges with respect to tariffs being placed by the United States, that major gateway, where again, most of our goods being Miami, perhaps the next best location could potentially be Panama. And we are seeing the efforts being placed now of locating logistics operations using Panama as a hub. Of course, they have already certainly tried to become a hub for their major airline, Copa, out of that the international airport there, but also from a shipping and logistics perspective, very, very important as well. And we'd even see that the interest being played by Chinese companies and interests in terms of establishment in Panama. So a lot of interest being placed there, and of course by the United States as well. And it's one of the areas we've heard suggestions by Mr. Trump in regard of reclaiming the Panama Canal and ensuring that it is a U.S. interest. I did want to touch on a little bit on the matter that has been circulating somewhat about a video clip, and that is with respect to somebody who has decided to allege that they were assaulted by a member of parliament. And there's been a lot said about this one, of course, and I think we did hear from the first instance the member of the Speaker of the House actually raising it because he indicated that he had received a request from the police for surveillance footage on the matter. And he, in fact, opined that he would, he had seen the video footage himself, but that he would not, but that he would, in fact, provide that on the basis that once it has been seen, that hopefully the police would take action against the individual making the complaint for wasting police time and resources. And of course, since then, we have seen a surrogate of the United Workers' Party come forward on a live over the weekend, putting forward a video which is purported to be that of the very incident. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much in terms of the matter of artificial intelligence and whether it was doctored or not. But if in fact it is the original video, and I think we can just take it from that baseline, then I'm not too sure that that video in any way even comes close to what would be considered assault. Now, assault, and we could perhaps go into looking at the law and what it speaks of, but it obviously there has to be some level of context, because the mere physical touch of an individual does not automatically become assault. That's the first thing that we need to establish. In fact, in some places, people would say that assault is not even necessarily a physical matter. There are suggestions that you could actually assault somebody without necessarily being physically touching the person. But you may touch somebody, and that may not necessarily be assault. So the context, of course, of the matter, whether it was repetitive, whether it caused injury, harm, or something of the sort, all has to be established by an individual, by the authority, who has to then decide whether, in fact, there is a case and a claim. And it really, in my opinion, in this instance, is a little bit unfortunate that the individual appears to have claimed that they were pushed out of the parliament. Again, just going by the video that was shared by the UWP surrogate, does not appear within that video to have been pushed out of parliament. Of course, the bigger issue now in terms of the context of a lot of what is transpiring within this circumstance is, number one, precisely what was the purpose of that individual who was adorned and being seen to have a protest shirt on, which was part of a protest which was going on outside of the parliament at that very same time, was then within the precincts of parliament, and according to that individual, was actually acting as a reporter. And so a lot of the big question marks are coming out within that context as to precisely whether that was in fact the location that the person should have been in within that first period. So I think the other major issue too is the matter of CCTV footage and precisely how this footage in any case was shared. And it is a matter that we've got to be a little bit mindful of, because it can very, very easily, if you're not careful, because as much as we are asking for greater CCTV surveillance to monitor our streets, to monitor public spaces, to be able to fight crime, there also has to be some level of responsible use of the CCTV footage, because you can then potentially utilize it, or it can be used for the wrong reasons, and it could potentially even jeopardize the case that is being used. For example, it could also be that when you send out CCTV footage, it may very well lead to creating a risk for the individuals who you are trying to gain information from. For example, if there's CCTV footage of a break-in or something that involves a private premises, then by putting out those that information, it might actually help those criminally minded individuals in terms of how they may then take forward their next exploit or attempt at committing crime. So the use of CCTV is very important, and how it is managed is also very, very equally important. And then to ensure, of course, that there is the degree of confidentiality in how it is also put out there. Just yesterday, for example, we saw the use of CCTV, and of course that's just closed-circuit television, in a matter of a robbery or purported robbery at a supermarket. And we saw footage going out all there and live and direct, and it was then being purported that these individuals were engaged in some kind of act. But is it always necessary in terms of what is put out, how it is put out, is something that needs to be considered within that context, because you sometimes may end up capturing other faces, capturing other people, providing sometimes too much information within the context of identification of those individuals and the act. So it is something I just wanted to flag within that context. Now, the matter of Venezuela. And we have seen an attack, a vessel purportedly holding individuals who, according to U.S. officials, were part of a drug cartel, effectively being blown up, I think is a fairly okay term to use, on the water. A military attack in this instance. We have an interesting little piece which has been circulating. Some people may have heard it already, speaking about the whole matter of the context of the American action and whether in fact it is aligned with truly dealing with the issue of narco trafficking as it is. And narco trafficking has been something that has been shifting in terms of the routes that are used. The problem that you find is that once you close one door, you shore up one location, they shift operations to another location, or they use different routes. It's multiple routes are being utilized. There is almost an expectation in some instances that not all the supply is going to get through, and so they know that they're going to be sort of overwhelming the system, so to speak. much effort has been made over on the Mexican-American border, for example, and we've seen a reductions in respect of narco trafficking in those areas. And then we have seen a shift towards Europe as a major market, more so even than the United States of America. So we wanted to speak about that in just a bit. We got a call coming in. Let's just take that call quickly, and then we can go back to that discussion. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you doing, sir?
I want to disturb your boy.
No, well, there was a caller earlier on. Go right ahead.
You know, I was in the stark contrast, man. With the GS and then, yeah, Europe, speaking in Copenhagen, you know, in luxury, to discuss the plight of the people in Gaza.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's something else, you know.
Mm.
And then we sit there talking about crime and things. Is it going to get better anywhere? Really and truly, or the best you could do is temporary respite? I mean, check the way the world going, man. It's really, you know, it's not easy to, it's not, you know, you have to be very cynical, you know, about what's really going on there. Because these people, you know, creating a hate.
Mm.
And by, you know, because, check it, Kali. So, the world wealthiest nations, the Europeans and them, and the United Nations and all of them, to be sitting down there and taking votes, and so you're telling me Belgium has joined, Spain has joined for a separate Palestinian state. You know, does that help? These things, you know, is that making a difference? That you vote for a Palestinian, independent Palestinian state? Is that really, you know, by the time that's ready to happen, will it make a different carriage?
Well, it'll probably be, by that time, it might already be the Gazan Riviera a la Trump. It might be a Trump Tower, a couple of Trump Towers over in Gaza.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, you know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, there will not be a Gaza anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's some remnants of what is left there that you want to call a state, these people will be so filled with hate. The survivors of what's going on there. You feel that trauma, you know, the trauma that those who are going to survive that, going to live through. You know, I tell you, some of them will prefer death.
Mm.
This thing will still go on. You will still have
Yeah. Yeah.
doing suicidal things, and you know that they're putting together that because it you know, and the world, what the only thing that could change Israel is the way they sit down there and come together and say, all right, we're not supporting that again. We're making Israel know that, because that's the only pressure that Israel will know, you know.
Well, it's ethnic cleansing. It is ethnic cleansing. From all intents, it is what they are engaging in. We haven't seen this extent of ethnic cleansing.
It's hard to see that anyway the world will not, it is not going to be anything else but a temporary respite.
Mm.
Because look at Indonesia, supposed to be one of the newly industrialized countries, the rising growing economy. Look at the unrest there now, soldiers out there in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And it goes on and on, you know. It goes on and on, you know. So it's not as if you're saying you're making progress. One step forward, how much backward?
But you know, the challenge that you have in Gaza, in Palestine, right? the inclusive of Israel, is, and I'll say something that sounds a little bit maybe controversial, but I personally don't think I'm not a fan of the two-state solution. I said I'm not a fan of the two-state solution because I don't feel necessarily that it'll ever work out. I feel what needs to happen is that there needs to be a state, yes, that all people can participate in. You see, but it's just trying to carve up, and especially given the fact that you already have seen Israel and the presence of all these settlements on the West Bank. I mean, how do you even create a Palestinian state? It'll be so fragmented. It'll be so difficult. But really, what it is that the average Palestinian needs to be able to have a right in a state, whether you call a state Israel, Palestine. But I feel it needs to be a matter that you've got to move away from this idea of a Jewish state. I think that to me is part of the problem that you have. The concept of a state built on a religion. I think so. Especially given the fact that within that state, you've got lots of different people who have different religions as well. And so it's. I'm not sure how you're ever going to be able to say that. And especially, look, you have Gaza. Gaza is not contiguous with the West Bank. How are people? How do you handle freedom of movement through Israel? It has to exist. How can you? Are you going to say that people moving from Gaza to the West Bank are not going to be able to do so freely within the same state? I don't know. I just don't see how. It is a peculiar situation, but as I'm saying, it is a state that is built upon the premise of a religion. A theocracy. Yeah, although it's not, in practice it's not. It's not. It's a very secular, and that's the irony of it. It's a very secular existence. Even the state itself is so fragmented, but within the state, you have ultra-right, ultra-orthodox interests, many of whom tell you, well, in a way, they set the agenda because they've gotten certain privileges and rights, which they keep. But at the same time, they don't want to get involved in the warfare. They tell you that this is something they don't want to have any dealing with. The IDF. They don't want to fight. But at the same time, you have those others who are out there who are very zealous, if you want to use that word, and they believe in the rights of a Jewish state. And it's a difficult thing to ever succeed. I don't know that it's
But they go according to Bible doctrine.
But there is a problem. Therein is a problem.
And the same doctrine will tell you, beware of the false Jews. You understand? Because I try to understand why you have a state Israel. And these people are not Israelites. Yes, Israelis. What's the distinction between an Israeli and an Israelite?
The Israelite is usually the reference to the older people of ancient times.
But that's what the Israel is built on.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's built on this idea of a kingdom that was formed in around the year 1000 BC. And
In other words, that's what justifies it. That's what legitimizes it.
so, and then of course later on, but then they'll tell you then too, a lot of that thinking was something that came out of the Hasmonean dynasty around 150 BC, which created the most recent state of Israel, right? That was the last time you had a state of Israel before. But you cannot be building a state on that basis where you almost you're saying that, well, if you are of a particular religion, you can get citizenship in a state. I'm not sure that we can that kind of arrangement will ever work, because what do you tell?
to the Bible, they will support whoever takes their doctrine from the Bible. Understand? And Israel is a satellite state created by the Western world.
Well, and to a certain extent, it's an appeasement. It is an appeasement because of the treatment of Jewish people in Europe, right? That's part of the problem, right? They were horribly treated in Europe. You had the Holocaust, you had the pogroms, you had a tremendous amount of ill treatment and killing off of Jewish people because of their religion, right? You want to get them out of Europe. You create a state, to shift the problem, to shift your quote unquote problem, right? But what do you do what do you end up creating in Palestine? So it really is certainly part of the European problem, because they certainly in very many ways created or helped facilitate the creation of the state of Israel. So, and of course, the United States is certainly very much keen to maintain the existence of the state. But it's how do you, and this is still the problem, how do you deal with the people who were there, who will continue to be there, for thousands and thousands of years, just because they may not be Jewish. And that's the point. They're very keen to maintain one of their greatest aircraft carriers and bases ever. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. You want a police state? Interesting thoughts, scholar. Very interesting thoughts indeed. We're gonna have to hold those thoughts for a little while longer because we're way over time. Thanks very much for that contribution. And of course, we'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, for another program of the Lunchroom. Hope you can join us for that, God willing. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.
Hey, this is Darren Sammy, and you're listening to Radio Caribbean International 101 #1. How's that?
Are you in need of financial assistance? Look no further than Fixed Limited.